We are on air now.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to start. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would like to welcome you to our hangout, SHL Hangout on the recent events and development in Macedonia. I welcome all of you to the Hangout, and before I start with my short introduction, I would like to ask everybody in our group to quietly, with 2 sentences, introduce her or himself. Like, I start with me. My name is Christian. I'm working and studying in Berlin. I'm member of association SHL and was in the past volunteer here in Macedonia at our partner organization CSI Nadesh. And yeah, still watching the events in Macedonia. So Bojan, if you would like to introduce yourself shortly.
Hi everyone, I'm Borjan Yuzelov. I'm a political scientist and recently an anti-corruption activist. I studied in Germany. I graduated my MA at the University of Flensburg at the most northern city in Germany.
Right. Hi, I'm Elena Stavrevska. I'm a PhD student and a researcher at the Central European University in Budapest. I'm also involved in, my PhD is in political science. I'm also involved in several initiatives. Well, anti-government, I would say, and then for better reforms of whoever's come next.
Okay. Kirsten just she had some problems with the internet, so we will continue without her, and she will join us later.
There she is, yeah.
Ah, there she is. Nice. Okay. Kirsten, can you hear and see us?
I can hear you. I can't see you at the moment. No, I can also see you now, and I don't know if you can see me and hear me.
Okay, we can't see you, but I guess you have just to move your camera a little bit, because I guess right now I just saw something like your hand. Yeah, I can see your hand.
Okay. Yeah, because I had a problem with the internet connection on my laptop, but through the mobile it's working. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, we have been just starting 1 minute ago, and I asked people just to introduce themselves with 2 sentences. So I'll ask you.
So it will be my turn, or? Yeah. Well, I'm Kirsten Schönfeld. I've been living and working in Macedonia now since 2011. First for Forum Civil Peace Service for 3 years, and I worked first in Struga at the Ohrid Lake in Western Macedonia, and then in Skopje, working on interethnic relations, mediation, and in the last half year I was engaged with the topic of Roma inclusion in Macedonia. And otherwise I'm a social scientist.
Okay, thanks to all of you for being ready to participate in the Hangout. Why Foundation SHL is organizing the Google Hangout. Unfortunately, it's quite rarely that Macedonia appears in German news or German media, but the last 3 weeks, more and more articles in social media, online newspapers, and later also in TV appeared. I guess just a few people in Germany heard about the student protest and heard about the fact that 20,000 Macedonian citizens have been under surveillance by the government. And also, I guess a few people heard about what was on the records, which indicate election fraud, abuse of justice, and media, and even suggest government covered up murder of young men by police. But definitely since 9th of May, when 18 people were killed in a 2-day-long shootout in Kumanovo, Germany got aware about Macedonia and that something in Macedonia is going on. 1 week later, also in Germany, we saw pictures of 10,000 of people peacefully demonstrating in Skopje in front of the government building, called the prime minister to resign. So that's why we would like to know more from you about the things happening right now in the country. So how's the next half hour going to be? I have a few questions, hoping that they are interesting for people listening and watching to us. I will address each question to one of you, hoping that she or he could tell us something. Is some other one to add something, perhaps give us another opinion, he or she can feel free to interfere after the person I have asked has finished. And beside that, people listening to us right now always have the opportunity to send me a message or a tweet via Twitter, and I will try to bring in. So it will also feel, for me, surprising to see what especially young people of SHL are interested in. So my first question, dear Elena, you have participated in some of the demonstrations in the last weeks. Can you tell us the most important reason why so many young people, but also people of other ages, decided to demonstrate and call the Macedonian Prime Minister Nikola Gruevski to resign?
Right. So I think that the current events have to be analyzed in a bit of a larger framework. I don't mean the 9 years of governing of Nikola Gruevski, but since probably October or November of last year, the society of fear within which we've been living has started loosening up. And this part of the reason is the student protests. There were large student protests, which were probably the largest citizen-organized protests ever. So after that, that was followed by other protests. And then several months of protests and public dissatisfaction was combined with, or were combined with the so-called bombs, or the revelation of the wiretapping scandal that you mentioned. Now, so I would say that some of the materials that were presented as part of this so-called wiretapping scandal just added fuel, or were the match to the fuel that already existed as part of this civic dissatisfaction. Now, the latest, not the latest bomb, but probably the most scandalous for most people was the one that revealed that top government officials were aware of a murder of a young man by a police officer while on duty, which is important, which calls for political responsibility there, knew about it and did nothing for some period. Also tried to cover it up in certain ways. There were large protests in 2011 when the murder happened, so this really built on that, on the memory of that movement as well. So on the 5th of May, when this material was presented in public, people spontaneously, it wasn't organized by anyone in particular, it was the family of the murdered boy that called for protest. So people went to the streets in front of the government. Some of them jumped over the police cordon, and it ended up in a bit of a violent clash between the demonstrators and the police. But the point being is that violence added to the dissatisfaction. So all of these things combined kind of caused the perfect storm, so to say. So it wasn't just the wiretapping scandal. Yeah, just to wrap up, my point is that it was several things in combination that led to the massive dissatisfaction we see nowadays.
Thanks. Bojan, a few days ago, I read an article written by you. You compared the Macedonian government with a Leviathan, so with a state with absolute power. Can you tell us something about political development in Macedonia during the government of Gruevski and his influence and politics on politics and society until now?
Yeah, thank you, Christian. The Macedonian Leviathan, which I mentioned in my text, is actually a captured state. It's a captured state where public institutions are captured by the ruling elites, or more accurately to say, the ruling party, or the top people at the ruling party. The wiretapping scandal revealed how centralized the governance in Macedonia was, that the prime minister and his peers were micromanaging processes which in a democratic society shouldn't be managed by them. For instance, they were interfering in the judiciary. They had strong impact on the media, like directly calling the editors of the daily news to tell them what to go in public and what should not go in public. Which created a huge concentration of power, where the division of constitutional division of powers was totally undermined, and where, as I already said, institutions were captured for their private or their party interests, which generated a vicious circle where there was no way out. Basically, there was no institution which remained uncaptured by this clique. And by saying this, I want to emphasize the problem of how to go out of this situation, because citizens don't really have opportunity to be accurately informed because of the captured media. They don't have opportunity to win a trial against the state or against the privileged people from the ruling party because of the captured judiciary. Members of parliament, even from the majority, cannot really vote against what's the decision of their party, because they are also appointed by the prime minister and his clique, which makes a certain vicious circle where no one can go out easily. And the recent civil society activism and protests are the sign of hope that outside of the system, of the institutions and the media, citizens can organize and can say their word against the current government, which is apparently very corrupt. And again, I would emphasize this: it captured institutions for its own interest.
Okay, thank you for that brief impression. Before I ask my next question to Kirsten, perhaps a few informations about the political and ethnic background of Macedonia for people listening us. Macedonia is a country with different ethnic groups living together and mixed through the whole country. And the biggest ethnic group, like the Slavic Macedonians, with around 64% of the people in Macedonia, and the second groups are Albanian people living especially in the north and the west, north and northwest of the country, estimated around 25% of the people in Macedonia. Besides that, there are also many Turkish people and Roma people living in Macedonia, but also Serbs and other groups. And like in the most other former Yugoslavian countries too, the ethnic relations in Macedonia haven't been easy and always been peacefully. In 2001, for example, there was the conflict. The conflict got extremely violent. Some people call it a civil war. Others say a civil war could be stopped. Dear Kirsten, you are living already and working already 3 years in Macedonia. You've been working on different projects dealing with the inter-ethnic relations between ethnic Macedonians and ethnic Albanians in the country. How would you describe the relations between Macedonians and Albanians in the country, especially for the incidents in Kumanovo 2 weeks ago? What have been your impressions about the relations and the tensions between both groups?
Yes, thank you for the question. I would think I read a recent poll that actually, quite surprisingly, or might be surprisingly, the inter-ethnic relations are as stable as they have been since long time. So it looks like the events of Kumanovo have not really shaken the inter-ethnic relations on, I would say, an interpersonal level. And that's also my impression when looking at the different protests that were mentioned by Elena and Bojan, that there is a strong will of especially Macedonians and Albanians not to get separated from each other, but to be together in these protests, and also more to live together, to continue living together in a peaceful way. You could see that, for example, by various pictures that you also see on Facebook, and the flags during the protest, where you have a Macedonian flag and an Albanian flag going together and showing this strong will to be together. And but I also would differentiate that from the political area, where I believe there is also growing dissatisfaction with still dissatisfaction with the position of the Albanian community in the whole setting up of the Macedonian state. And of course, there are always voices and political forces that think that the Ohrid Framework Agreement, which ended the violent conflict in 2001, is not sufficient, or is not sufficiently being implemented so that the Albanians would have sufficiently equal position in the state. But yeah, my main point would be, and I think that is quite important also to keep up this will of all the ethnic groups not to get divided, but to live together peacefully in a common state.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. My next question is to Bojan. What impressions do you have of the situations and the mood in Macedonian society after the events in Kumanovo, the incidents in Kumanovo? What do you or your family, your friends and colleagues feel and think about the incidents? Well, what's your opinion?
I would agree with Ms. Kirsten saying that I believe the recent event did not really impact the inter-ethnic relations, which are, in my opinion, in my knowledge, better than any time before. I think Macedonians, ethnic Macedonians and ethnic Albanians learned how to live together, how to respect the diversity. Of course, there are still many challenges. Not always inter-ethnic relations are completely relaxed and peaceful, but I think now the situation is probably the best from the independence of Macedonia till today, and I think that most of the citizens did not really find this recent Kumanovo conflict as an inter-ethnic conflict, but as a conflict between Macedonian state authorities, where there are also ethnic Albanian members of the special police forces and so on, and some still unknown terrorist group. This is also the official version of the government. And now around this mystery, who wanted to destabilize Macedonia and why, and who stayed behind this terrorist group, there are plenty of conspirative theories. And personally, I'm not a fan of conspiracies and conspirative theories, nor some geopolitical interpretations by people who don't really understand geopolitics. But I would say, although there is still scarce information what did really happen in Kumanovo 2 weeks ago, the general opinion, which is also discussed by the opinion makers, experts within the country, is that it was not really a terrorist group that wanted to take some to have some ethnic motive behind and maybe destabilize inter-ethnic relations, but it was a group of mercenaries who do that for money. This opens, as I said, many questions: who paid them, who trained them, who organized them. This remains unclear, but for sure, if someone had this impression that with such conflict it can trigger bigger inter-ethnic conflict, this didn't happen. So luckily, I think inter-ethnic relations are stable as far as I know.
Yeah, thanks. And I guess Kirsten already mentioned it, and I also have seen it, that on the pictures and clips I saw of the demonstration in Skopje, that we could see a lot of Macedonian flags, but in between also Albanian flags, Turkish flags, and flags of the Roma community. Elena, can you tell us something about the ethnic mix of the demonstrants, or in general, like what kind of people go out and demonstrate? Are people from parties, or other people from civil organizations? So what are your impressions about it?
Right, so we have to be clear about a certain distinction that exists. So there's the so-called camp in front of the government, which is organized by the biggest opposition party and a coalition of formal civil society, so organized civil society. There you do have also party members, but you have citizens from around the country as well. While the grassroots movement I'm talking about, which is #protestiram or #IProtest, is very diverse. I'm sure there's people who do have a party membership here or there. It's a lot of young people, but we also have elderly people coming and joining, often saying that they're doing that for us and for the future generations. But we do have, I think, an ethnic mix as well of demonstrators. Now, it's probably not to the extent that one would want to see. It might be predominantly Macedonian, but for instance, on Sunday, when the movement Protestiram decided to support the larger protest organized by the coalition, there were a lot of people of Albanian ethnic background that joined us. So we shout freedom in Macedonian, we shout freedom in Albanian. It's a fairly inclusive movement, and as Borjan said, I don't think that what happened in Kumanovo changed this to the negative. To the contrary, I think actually contributed to more people of different backgrounds coming and joining the demonstrations. So while we don't know what happened in Kumanovo, we know what didn't happen, and it was an ethnic conflict that did not happen. Since the demonstrations are not just about the change of the government, but it's about the change of institutions, so that in 5 years' time we don't protest about the same thing again. A lot of people frustrated by the current situation. So that obviously brings a diverse mix, not just ethnically, but also education-wise, party politics-wise, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. You talked a lot about the demonstration of opposition, or political opposition, but also of NGO groups on Sunday. But on Monday there was also like a huge demonstration of the government with also 10,000 of people supporting the government. Perhaps who wants to say something about? For me, it seems like there is still also a great support of the government. Can you explain why there, on the one hand, is a worse situation on civil society, and on the other hand, there are still 10,000 of people going to demonstration organized by the government, organized by the party of Nikola Gruevski? How does it work? Who wants to say something? It's free to you.
Can
I would like to refer to this briefly. I believe that even the worst dictator has its own supporters, and that's the problem of dictatorships. And in terms of Macedonia, I still believe that the party of Nikola Gruevski, which is in power for 9 years, still enjoys large support. Part of this support is honest political support by people who believe that the program of Nikola Gruevski, the doctrine of the party, is the right doctrine for Macedonia, and they are politically supporting that because of their own beliefs. Another part who was part of the protest, and the protest was only organized to show muscles that we also have citizens behind us. It's not just the opposition or the civil society who can mobilize people, but that we also are still strong. That was the idea of the protest. The second group, which I like to describe, is citizens who were there because they are in some way dependent on the will of this centralized government I just mentioned before. Citizens who work in the public administration, citizens who are at some way dependent, their existence is dependent on some public resource. It can be also agricultural subsidy or similar thing, which is micromanaged by the political party on a very particularistic way, where it's the party will who decides who will get the service or the resource which citizens are entitled by law. So it should be, the distribution should be equal for everyone, but it's not. And that's the way how lots of people and lots of public support, which is not really an honest political public support, but triggered fixed public support, is generated. So that was the second group of citizens who, by this system of carrot or stick, had to be there in order to maintain their well-being, because part of their existence, or the entire existence, is dependent on the will of the party. So they want to be in a good relationship with decision makers who are coming from the party, which is another argument pro my what I just mentioned before about this vicious circle, which is also based on a stable support the government has.
Mm.
I'd like to add one more group to what Borjan described. Those are the two groups that were there, and then the third group, it seems, is a group that does not like the opposition party. That is an opposition to the opposition, because the understanding. So there's a camp actually in front of the assembly as well, the Parliament of Macedonia, which is they call themselves defenders of democracy, and they are in support of the party in government. But when you talk to them, most of them will tell you that they're fine with this kind of governing right now because they don't want for the Social Democrats to come to power. So part of the support is in favor, and the other in favor of them, and the other part is against something else. So I think, but that goes in line with what Borjan was saying about the captured media, because I think a lot of the messages actually don't get communicated. So.
And a lot of other pro-governmental messages are always in the media, stigmatizing everyone who is criticizing the government, that is a foreign mercenary, national traitor, or all these etiquettes, which labels, that make public opinion hostile towards everyone who criticizes the government. So media are impacting on all three groups we just mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay. Kirsten, yeah?
Yeah. I would. I believe the situation was well described by Borjan and Elena, and I'd like to add to the last point of freedom of media. I believe that it's true, and that especially in the smaller cities and rural areas of Macedonia, there is also a lack of information, of independent information for the people, because there has been a serious decline in media freedom since at least 2008, and that a lot of the messages that need to come across, or that opposition or other groups would like to come across, don't reach the whole, or cannot reach the whole population. And I mean, despite the fact that there are, of course, also the independent news portals on the internet, which provide very good information, this is not accessible to everybody. And I would also like to make a point, but we might come to that later, to the role of the European Union and also Western Europe in general. But if you have foreseen that for later, I'll keep that.
I guess that would be the next question. I will also ask you, how does the things happening in the last 3 weeks influence the relation between Macedonia and European countries, and how does it influence the perspective of Macedonia on the European Union, so on the integration process? So what's your opinion?
The question is to me, or?
To you, yeah.
Yes, well, I mean, you mentioned in the beginning that now, like, since long time, or maybe for the first time ever, there is like a real interest in, let's say, the German, but also other European media for the situation in Macedonia, and I would strongly support that. And I believe that the development which the country has gone through over the last years, in my view, especially since 2012, has not been in the center of the attention of the European Union, and that the European Union was not, in my view, sufficiently enough aware of the dangers which might arise from all this situation. And so let's say now maybe in the very last moment, like the EU woke up, and I think that is important, as well as the United States. And there are also now in the media a lot of speculations about the role of the US and Russia and the Russian Federation on this whole conflict, and if that might be if there is any geopolitical dimension to this whole question, to the whole conflict at the moment and the crisis in Kumanovo. And I think it's like really important to keep up the interest and the clear look on the situation in Macedonia, and not to get lost again, I would say.
Okay.
And also, for me, maybe one last point to this also adds up to the question of the safe country. I mean, the decision which was taken by the German parliament to declare Macedonia as a safe country, so that asylum seekers would be sent back. I think that this whole decision was quite disputed, also because of the situation of the Roma population in Macedonia. But I think the current situation shows that the situation is not as stable as that, and that Macedonia, it was maybe not the right decision to declare Macedonia as a safe country, but that there is always the danger of destabilization. And if there is a geopolitical dimension to this, I believe that Macedonia really is a guarantee for a stable region. And if the destabilization would go on, it would also have severe impact on the whole region.
Okay, thanks. So since time is running faster, Elena, I guess you want to add something?
Yeah, you're absolutely right when you talk about stable Macedonia and stability in the region. But I think one aspect that we seem to forget is that stabilization does not necessarily have to come prior to democratization, or they're not mutually exclusive. And it seems that I mean, from the discourse that I've been following of the EU and the entire international community so far, they've known about the ways of Gruevski, but they have seen him as a stabilizer, which is why they did not want to poke the bear in the eye. Now, all of a sudden, the stability is also put into question, so that's why they step in. However, I would also be critical of the way things are done, because they're still done behind closed doors. They're still done in this matrix of, we're going to agree of how things are going to be, and then we're going to let the citizens know. So using this rupture in the system for democratization is not really very much done by anyone, except for the citizens demanding more. But when I say it's not done by anyone, I mean both the political parties and the international community. So yeah, on that very positive note, I'm going to stop there. The democratization has to come with stabilization rather than after.
Okay. Since time is running, I would like to ask everybody, for a short final statement. Asking you, Elena, how do you hope or expect the demonstrations are going to continue? Like, nobody can predict the future, but how do you expect the movement is developing?
I think there's slowly, we're becoming aware that what happened prior to the biggest protest on the 17th, and let's say the 18th as well, was one thing, and what's happening now is a different thing. The terms of the change of government are being negotiated, as I said, elsewhere. Now, what I think the movement stands for is more about the longer-term process of changes. So we have these plenums where we discuss. It's very frustrating, but we try to have this inclusive way of doing politics and of making decisions. So it's more about the values that we are to establish in the new order, let's call it that, for lack of a better term, rather than about the immediate change. It's also about, I would say, resistance to the system as it is, parallel to these happenings. I'm very positive because I think that I'm skeptical a bit, but I'm also positive because I think that the mentality is changing in a sense that people want more and want better. They don't want just a short-term change. They want a longer-term change. That's my impression, anyways. Maybe the others have different impressions.
Thank you very much, Bojan. What do you think? Elena said that she expects there could be a change. I also read that some people compare the situation right now with the situation in Serbia before Milosevic lost its power. What do you think? Is there a chance that the government is going to, and that Gruevski is going to resign in the close future?
I believe that there will be some change. The modes of change are still unclear to us. Probably they are already discussed within the highest political circles, but we don't know yet. But I'm afraid we need to be very patient with that change. And here is our struggle, that this is neither an interethnic crisis. This is not fight for who will get the power afterwards. It's a struggle how to develop a new system afterwards. Like, I believe this crisis can be a good opportunity for starting from first to turn to a blank page and start rebuilding the system towards a better democracy, better governance, and finally rule of law for everyone, which won't be selectively applied. So I am optimist, but I believe the change won't be fast.
Okay, thank you very much, Kirsten. So, what do you think? How the situation, how development is going on? Do you have the same opinion like Elena and Bojan, that it will a slowly development, or what do you think?
Yes, I would actually agree both with Bojan and Elena that there are signs, and it seems that there is going to be an agreement, some kind of agreement between the government and the opposition on forming some kind of government of unity, or to make some changes in the governmental structures. But I also believe that this is going to be it's not going to be a quick decision, but a slow process, which I believe is also the government camp, which was mentioned, shows that the government is still tries to be strong. So I believe that's going to be a slow process. But at the same time, I would also say, whatever changes may come in the government, whatever agreement there might be between the opposition and the government, that won't be enough. So it's really, as Elena also explained, will be very important to keep up the democratization process in the schools, in the universities, at the grassroots level, in the civil society, and that this is a long way to go. As same as in the media system, I do believe that there's a couple of years of work, and I would also end positive that if there is, let's say, hope in this crisis, it could be a starting point for like a real deeper democratization process. And then I would again appeal to also the international community to also keep on supporting this democratization process in a real sense, and not only look at the obvious agreement between the government and the opposition.
Okay, so thank you very much. So I would summarize, it's very important to follow the developments and to see what's going on in the next month, in the next so thank you very much for your time you spent in front of the computer. I guess how I already wrote you, everybody of us in Germany, of our members, of our staff, can inform themselves via internet or via articles. But I still guess it's much worth to be in direct exchange, to be in direct contact with people living in Skopje, living in Macedonia, and see day level what's going on. So, yeah, okay.
Thanks all.
Okay, so yeah, thank you very much, and yeah, bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for. Thanks.